I'm sort of almost upskilling people above me, people that I really look up to. And certainly at the hospital, it's like I respect them so much, and the lives that they've led and the stories that come back to me as I'm sharing my skill with them. It's a lovely dialogue that we have, and that's really what I treasure the most.
Because I'd never done pottery before, I just found it helped me in the headspace I was in, and I got into it, and then I look forward to going to it. Things got better for me.
Life's it's not quite right, but it started to be fun, and that started here.
Yeah.
And I felt so relieved that I could be the person I am, really, not the person I had to show.
The Potters are true ambassadors, that you are never too old to try something new, to be daring and bold, have fun and stay that way.
For this episode of the Creativity Found podcast, I'm speaking with Emily, Ray, John, Tony and Bert, and also hearing from Jan and Alan. That's a few more guests than usual, I know, but that is because Emily Chilvers invited me to her pottery session and 10-year anniversary party at Royal Hospital Chelsea, the world-famous retirement home for ex-servicemen and women in London. I was so excited when Emily got in touch to tell me about her experiences of sharing her ceramic skills and passion with the residents at Chelsea, and to get the chance to speak with some of her regulars, many of whom did not start potting until they moved to the hospital. In this episode, you will hear me chat with Emily about how she was taken on in a trial capacity to teach for 6 weeks, and how 10 years later, she's still there and loving it. You will also hear from a few of the pensioners about why they love the sessions and the benefits they have gleaned from taking part in this creative practice. Some of the footage was recorded at the anniversary party and during a Tuesday session in the studio, where activities don't stop for a podcast recording. So expect to hear the atmosphere of background noise, including a hairdryer and the clatter of tea and cake. Hi Emily, how are you?
Very good, thank you. Thank you for having me on.
You're very welcome. You have been teaching pottery to residents of Royal Hospital Chelsea for just over 10 years. But start by telling me when and where your pottery journey began.
Probably going back to my earliest contact with clay would have been at high school. I'd always had a creative sort of growing up, had a very creative grandfather who was kind of quite key in how I grew up and what I enjoyed doing. But clay was probably not something that I had used until I got to high school. And I had a teacher, my art teacher, who was a potter, who we'd never actually used it kind of as part of our curriculum, or it had never really come up during classes. And then during my GCSE coursework, somehow she just decided that clay was the thing for me. And that was the point where I was probably one of the only ones in the class that started using it, and she uncovered this room that was in the middle of the 2 classrooms at our school where the kiln was, and suddenly this whole world was opened up to me. And that's what I developed into my GCSE work and beyond. And yeah, that was the starting point. I owe it all to her.
Yeah. So that was kind of by chance.
Yeah, it kind of was by chance. I mean, probably whatever I was working on, somehow she thought, oh, maybe this could be incorporated into some clay work. Quite an awakening for me, just the alchemy of building and constructing with this material, this soft material that turned into something hard and concrete when it went in the kiln, and exploring all the colours and the glazes. And it was quite an exciting time. So I've seen her since a few years back, and I remember saying, I owe it all to you. Because without that starting point, you just, who knows what would have happened.
Yeah. So what were you able to do with that after high school then?
The thing for me at high school was and I suppose even now, I'm quite wayward in all the things I like to explore, and I have so many different materials that I like to experiment with. It became quite a key element for me, but there were other things going along in my studies. So woodwork was another big area that I was really interested in. And that's what I took into my university degree, which was a similar kind of exploration. It was all workshop based. It was down at Brighton, and it was all in the workshops, practical study, but based in all those different materials. So I wasn't necessarily honing in on one. eventually I had to then select 2 materials, which kind of were my specialism in the end, and that was clay and wood. But yeah, it allowed me to find something that gave me that freedom to just keep playing around and experimenting with things. And I definitely think that's probably still what I do today and what I enjoy sharing with others. That's how I got into it, and that's how I like to share it now.
Yeah, it's very much doing, isn't it?
Totally doing.
Getting into it and doing. So then after uni, what were you able to do after you've got your degree? And you've touched on it. Had you always wanted to teach your craft?
Yeah, I don't think that was in my mind, because certainly in the degree that I did, you know, the vision for all of us was the idea that you're going to go off and set up your own studio. And that was maybe an aim in my mind. I don't think necessarily that I was driven by that necessarily, because I went straight into working for other people, or certainly assisting other people, just as a way of getting a feel for the industry and what people were doing. And it wasn't all clay based. That had been my focus towards the end of my degree. But I was working for a wood turner, a leather maker. I just tried different people, going into their workshops and seeing how it all worked. You know, and there was the whole thing when you left your degree about how you're not going to have all this equipment, and you're not going to have the facilities that you have when you're there in these incredible workshops and with everything at your disposal. So I don't really know what I was thinking at that point. I think I just enjoyed the going into and finding out about, you know, the industry itself. So that gave me, that kind of passion for working with others, and the assisting role, actually, I suppose, maybe in a way that's kind of what I kind of see myself as now, and maybe that's perhaps what developed into the teaching. I loved the helping support somebody develop their work, and meeting all the interesting people that were around the medium that we were working in, whether that was going to other factories or, you know, whatever I was doing at that point. I just enjoyed the people aspect of it. And then I started an apprenticeship with a potter. That was 2 days a week at that point. I was working in a pub the rest of the time, like trying to balance the reality of where am I going to make any money, and really enjoyed that. He's quite a well-known potter. His name's Julian Stair. He had a lovely workshop in Dulwich, and it was sort of a dual-based role where I was assisting him on work that he was developing for his solo show at that point, and then getting the chance to develop my skills at the same time. So he was a thrower, so learning those skills. And as I say, working in the pub at the same time, and the two kind of weren't really working together. And then one evening I came home from my pub work, and really early in the morning I just found another part-time role as a pottery tutor in a care home. And this was a care home in Wandsworth called Nightingale. It's a Jewish home. Not as big as Chelsea, but fairly big in terms of about 180 residents. This kind of unexpected role that didn't really think would ever have been possible. I mean, I wouldn't have even considered that kind of role, but thought actually this is, kind of maybe something that I could do alongside the work I was doing for Julian. And that kind of started a whole new interest in drawing out what I was taking from working with Julian and the other people that I've been apprenticing for, and then seeing how it actually could be used in this new role. And actually that's what I was more driven about, making and using my skills to help other people.
My name's Ray.
And how long have you been coming to pottery?
Must be about 7 years now, 8 years.
Yeah.
Long time, isn't it?
It's a good time. Do you remember why you chose to come to this particular?
I wanted to make something as a memory for my kids and my wife. And her name was Iris. So I came down and I saw Emily, and she said, well, start making a dish. I said, no, I don't want to make a dish. So I made an iris flower, and I made 8 of them. And I gave them as Christmas presents. I used to do wood turning and all sorts of other things, but I've never done pottery.
Yeah.
Not that I'm any good at it, because I only make seconds.
What do you mean?
I deliberately don't make things perfect.
Oh, I see. You make seconds. I see.
If you've got something perfect on the table, it's on the table, and people look at, oh, that's it. But if it's something with something wrong with it, people say, oh, that's not quite right, but they don't know whether it was deliberate or a mistake.
Yeah.
So I only make seconds. That's my excuse.
But you're right. And also, in many cases.
Don't tell him it's right.
Oh, sorry. It's the process as much as it is the finished article.
I just like making things stupid because nobody can ever say that isn't perfect. Because it's only perfect, like everything is the same off the production line. So that's perfect in its way, because that's how I wanted it to be. Imperfect, right?
And what about you, John? Why did you start coming?
I've been very poorly. Ray suggested to me that it might help for me to come and have a go at doing some pottery. So I told him to buzz off a number of times.
Obviously.
But being the persistent pest he is, I said, oh, okay, I'll give it a go. And, it was such in a way, a friendly group. And it seemed really nice. And so I started to go, because I'd never done pottery before. I just found it helped me in the headspace I was in. And I got into it, and then I looked forward to going to it. Things got better for me. So I kept going, and that was about, 6 years ago now, Ray? 7 years ago?
So you still get all those kind of benefits?
Yes. Yes, because it's a very much more compact group, because it's had to be split because of the size of the room.
Right.
It had to be split.
Yeah.
But it's still got that, bit of banter, and it's nice to see what other people make, even though they make a load of rubbish, But no, I personally think that some of the stuff which is made, considering that these people like myself have never been involved in pottery, some of the stuff they make is quite surprisingly good, in my opinion. I personally find it's very helpful and continues to be helpful to me, and I think it's beneficial to all of us. And we have a laugh.
Yeah.
And Emily's such a lovely girl, really. And other people associated with it are very considerate of us, really.
Yeah.
So I enjoy it. I can't see myself giving it up.
I think it's very forward thinking of the care home to put creative workshops on. Just lovely. It's a kind of thing that maybe wouldn't be considered the most important thing in that environment.
Absolutely.
But that's brilliant that they were advertising for that. So tell me, we have an international audience. So for those who aren't aware of it, can you tell me more about the Royal Hospital and a little about maybe some of the students that come to your sessions?
The Royal Hospital is quite an iconic building in itself, but also for what it represents. It's a home, retirement home, and also care home for ex-servicemen and women of our British Army. So veterans going back to World War II that we have residing there, and there's about 300 residents that live on site. So I started developing other smaller kind of workshops in care homes and hospitals. And Nightingale and Chelsea kind of worked closely at that time, sharing activities and often doing things together. So the activity lady at Chelsea had seen what I did at Nightingale and asked if I could come and try something out, which was only supposed to be for 6 weeks. The programme was sort of developing at that time. There was lots of sort of social engagement, lots of musical activities that would happen, concerts and things like that, but perhaps not at that time as much as Nightingale were offering a sort of creative art-based provision for pensioners. And actually, I must say about Nightingale, it wasn't the first time that they'd had pottery there. It'd been running at Nightingale for about 25 years. So it wasn't a new thing. It was just I was taking over from the potter that had been there before. But it is, unheard of that a potter would be literally based within a care home. So Chelsea was a chance for me to almost start that myself. And that's why, in a way, it's got such a special place in my heart, because it really was me instigating and creating something. And from what I thought, was going to maybe, even though I maybe knew the potential of what it could become, knowing that at the start it was only supposed to be 6 weeks, it was like, okay, well, let's just make a go of it. And also going into a home where the majority are men. So we only have maybe now, I think 15 to 20 women that had just started being accepted at the point when I started working there. But to go into a completely different audience, because often when I'm visiting care homes or hospitals, it's normally women that I'm interacting with, which is kind of a common thing, I suppose, with craft-based activities. But perhaps there was something more physical about, maybe a bit more masculine about working with clay that appealed to the pensioners. And I started with 5 at that point for the 6-week course. And it was quite a mixed sort of group of guys that were coming for different reasons. Some were interested in pottery previously or had done a little bit before. Others kind of liked the idea of trying something different. There was a chap in particular, Jimmy Jones, and he'd never done it before, but he was quite interested. I took some objects into Handel when I first went to meet them all, and he was quite interested and showed an interest in me talking about the Victoria and Albert Museum and places that we could perhaps explore and things like that. And his ears pricked up, and Teresa, who was the activity lady at the time, had said to me, like, wow, he doesn't often respond to many things. So this is obviously this is exciting, because if we can get him to do something, it'd be great. And he was with me for about 8 years. He passed away during COVID, not because of COVID, but he was a wonderful man and had the steadiest hands I've ever known. He became known for these sort of spotty patterned clocks that he would make that were his sort of signature thing. And he was 94, 95, I think, when he passed away, but his hands were so steady, so that he was really neat in doing these patterns, and, they were all precise based on the clock and configuration of the numbers and everything, and it was just so lovely to watch him work.
Now, as you look around the room and you look at the screen, you'll see various folk that are no longer with us. We had one guy, Dougie, who had been captured by the Japanese. He'd worked on the railways. He used to specialise in making poppies. He sent one to the Queen, and she sent a personal letter back to Dougie for these beautiful poppies. And he was making poppies before poppies became popular, you try saying that, at the Tower of London. Dougie was making poppies way before then, yeah? So we've had some wonderful, wonderful potters. We've had Jimmy. Okay, the clocks that you see, there are some clocks around the place. They are genuine Jimmies, okay, genuine Jimmies. Jimmy fought through the Second World War. He used to do everything with dots, and every now and again he would say, "Excuse me, I'm going to swear. Oh, bugger." And wipe the dot and redo it, That was Jimmy, a gentleman. So we've had lots and lots of wonderful people, very fond memories of those people. And like the potters that we have here today, Emily helps us develop our own particular direction. I mean, Ron, sitting there, made a copy of the Cenotaph. It's magnificent, absolutely brilliant, Ron. Yeah. Emily comes alongside. We don't work alone. Emily comes alongside, and she gets the very, very best out of us. Emily came for a trial. It's been the most successful trial hobby interest that's ever been introduced into Chelsea, okay? And it's going on.
When I joined the Royal Hospital 10 years ago, my granddad had just passed away. His name was Roy. We were very close. He was an army man, and also the person I owe my creativity to. He was so proud to hear I was going to be working here. So it was sad that he never got to see me start. On the day I started here, as I was setting up the tables, Teresa said she was going to collect a pensioner who'd been desperate to come to pottery. He didn't attend many activities, so it was great he was keen to join. When she brought him in, she said, "Emily, this is Roy." And it completely took me back. I obviously took it as a sure sign that my granddad Roy was there with me. And ever since, I guess, a part of being here has felt a little bit like being lots of honorary grandparents. And I thank you for that. Because that's a really special thing. And that's what I love about the group the most. You are all so special to me.
When I came to the event, obviously I saw all the fabulous work, but hearing the pensioners talk at the presentation bit of the event after you did your lovely speech that you were very nervous about.
Oh my God, it was it was such an overwhelming day. I mean, those things don't happen very often for me anyway, as you can probably guess, and you can tell why. But I think, especially when you're a freelancer, you really have only got yourself to kind of encourage, haven't you? Even though there's a community out there, you know, and the hospital is, with its army background, it's got a certain reputation and status, and to have that sort of creative element in that kind of environment, it's hard to, you know, feel like it's of value sometimes. You know, I mean, it's absolutely well respected there, and the way that it's grown is so appreciated by everybody. But yeah, I suppose you still feel like you're the sort of the one creative person that's constantly advocating for it. And yeah, to get that reception, and also just for me to bring together all those people that have been part of the journey over those 10 years, it was just very overwhelming and just so lovely. And I know all those experiences that they've had, that they tell me and share with me during classes about why it benefits them and why they're so happy to be there. But just to hear it out loud, and, you know, for everybody else to hear it, it's just so lovely, because they have all had very different ways into working with clay. And that's the lovely thing about it. It's, you know, this one ball of clay can just be so much for so many different people. Yeah,
they had wonderful things to say about their benefits and about you in particular, but about coming to the classes and how that benefits them physically as well as mentally and well-being wise.
I'm not a very patient person, but we have the people less able than myself in our pottery group, and you learn from people like Emily and David to make time for people with fewer abilities than yourself, to take the time to listen to these people, talk to these people, and make them your friends. And that's so important in life, and a lot of us don't do that. One of the things my group miss is touch. And I think our age group, when we probably lost our spouses and our loved ones, is we go into a care scenario and nobody touches you. You're not allowed to touch people today. You're not allowed to go, "Are you all right, my dear?" and things like this. That's not the case in the pottery group. We're all bunged in a room, we just have to get on and nobody touches everybody, and it's just great fun. So what I found through clay, as I've recently been on the potter's wheel, is that having a piece of clay on a potter's wheel and running your hands around that clay while it's making a pot or something, it's one of the most sensual things, and somehow you feel you're being touched, you feel that you're touching something, and it gives you a lot. So although it's an inanimate piece of clay, it somehow gives you something, and it gives me such joy, I tell you, it really does. I love this group, it has given me an identity. I'm very proud to be a member in this, your 10th year, Emily.
I love that person interaction, and that is really what drives what I do, and perhaps sometimes becomes the forefront of what I do over the medium in which what we're using, the clay that we're using. That's the conversation starter, but it's the conversation that develops out of it for each person that I love the most, and that's what is empowering for me and for whoever I'm working with, that it can give somebody that at that age, because, you know, I'm sort of almost upskilling people above me, you know, people that I really look up to. And certainly at the hospital, it's like I respect them so much, and the lives that they've led and the stories that come back to me as I'm sharing my skill with them. It's a lovely dialogue that we have, and that's really what I treasure the most, and what I try to offer wherever I'm delivering something. So if it's in a hospital, for example, you know, you're not going to get the same sort of impact working with clay immediately, because you might only be seeing that patient for 20 minutes, but it's the way you can connect with somebody and have a conversation.
I mean, the reason I came down when I arrived, I wasn't in the best position, I wasn't in the best situation. Talk about grumpy old men, well, and I'm suddenly shown these things. I've never done this before. I'm sleeping all day, I might as well go down and do it. Because if I didn't do it, I'd sleep. And the more I sleep, the worse I am.
Yeah.
So this is therapeutic to me. And the other thing is I've started having life. It's not quite right, but it started to be fun. And that started here.
Yeah.
You know, and I felt so relieved that I could be the person I am, really. Not the person I had to show because it was work. And the person I showed had to be very caring, very helpful, didn't mind anything, spend any number of hours doing it.
And this was doing what?
I was nursing, I was doing occupational health nursing, but before that I was in the army. And when you come out of that environment and you find home, you look around and the home hasn't been there for a lot of years. And then suddenly you get the catastrophe, everybody leaves, or passes on, and you stood there with nothing. And then you arrive here. I had a year and a half where I just could not settle.
Yeah.
And I wanted to walk away. And one of the things that kept me here was the fact that I could be with people who knew what I was, didn't care.
Yeah.
And the pottery was an outlet that I felt very, very comfortable with. I don't remember seeing Keith the other day, but he knew me straight away. And he sort of knew the place I was in. It wasn't a great place, so I kept away. Oh, but I miss my pottery. Please, can I go back? And nobody was stopping me, except me.
Yeah.
So the pottery itself is therapeutic in so much. You sit and you listen to the guys around you. When anything happens or anything, everybody is there. They'll keep away from you if you want. That's what, because they know, they feel it.
Yeah.
It's not like having a full-time course where somebody's going to teach you something. It's a learning space. And that's the way Emily does it. Gives you a sort of idea, and pottery begins. And it begins with you going out and rolling out a piece of clay. You don't have a clue what you're going to do.
Yeah.
But you roll it out, you get in there, and you just start. The difference is the person who teaches you to respond to the materials.
To bring out
that's
what wants to come out.
Yeah, and because perhaps I'm a little bit daft, but I honestly believe that any materials that you handle or move with it or sort of lean against, they've got life of their own. And I know it sounds crazy, but then again, I'm as crazy as they come. But that is what happens in that room. It holds you and it keeps you safe.
Yeah.
All the things that you want. My biggest thing at the moment is I simply lost my wife 2 weeks, 3 weeks before COVID was. And I just, what do I do?
Yeah.
It's a big change in your life. And I've been able to work out with the materials and enjoy them no end.
Yeah.
The thing about pottery is it doesn't matter, and the mistake doesn't matter. It's not like you're working in wood, and the precision's got to be. The precision is there when you finish. It hasn't got to be there, but it's your interpretation.
Yeah.
I recommend.
You recommend it?
Yeah, recommend it.
There's something really nice about when somebody's got something in their hand to sort of play with in a way, even just like the material itself that's so tactile, and to be able to feel that, to be able to open up it's a lovely experience to just use it in that format as much as I can do the building somebody's skill level up within the clay world.
Yeah, there's more to it than that. You talked about hospitals there, so what is these other things that you do?
Building off of Nightingale, really, when I first started there, it was just about how can I offer this to other settings. I just started delivering smaller sessions to either care homes that didn't have the budget, so I would do maybe shorter one-off or 6-week sessions. And then I worked for a charity up at Chelsea Westminster Hospital called CW Plus. They're an arts charity based within the hospital, and they work across that hospital in West Middlesex as well. And I just deliver as part of the arts programme, so it's called Arts for All. So they have musicians, dancers, other art makers that go in and work with the patients on the wards and just do smaller activity based by their bedside.
Oh, that's fabulous.
So I'm here, there and everywhere.
Yeah. Well, Emily, thanks so much for contacting me to tell me about this fabulous initiative and giving me the opportunity to sit in on a session and chat with some of the pensioners. I've had a really, really lovely time.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having us.
As I said goodbye to the pottery room, I was treated to a fabulous tour of the hospital and a super lunch with resident Bert. But before that, he told me about his experience of creating with wood and clay.
Came to the hospital 2 years ago, 2 years and 3 months ago, having lived on a narrowboat for 6.5 years, which was great. So we're all around the canals in England.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And in the winter periods, when you can't move on the canals, I moved up on a marina in Nottingham. Before I bought my boat, I used to have my own little cellar with a lathe, etc. And I used to turn wood. So anything from bowls to ornaments, vases, you name it, I did it. So when I bought my boat in the winter, I found a place called Men in Sheds. It was created in Australia. And what they did was, they said, any man that wants to come and have a coffee and get a break from home can come and have a coffee and a cake. And the wife said, get out. I'm going shopping. So they sent them off. And they went for cake and coffee, etc. And somebody said, well, why don't we start building things? So they started building things for charity.
Yeah.
So they make rocking horses like we did. They made bird boxes, hedgehog boxes. Well, like everything that was in America or Australia, eventually came over here. So I came here and I started to go to a workshop, a Men in Sheds shop, massive big unit. I was there for 4 years, maybe 6 years, in the winter months. And the chap taught me different things woodworking-wise as well as me turning.
Yeah.
And we made everything. We made rocking horses for charity. We made bird boxes, etc. I even helped a woman make a coffin for her husband. She came in one day, Brenda, because we had women in sheds on a Tuesday. And the women came in, having lost their husbands, loads of tools, didn't know what they were for. And said, can you help us?
Yeah.
So we showed them what the different screw heads were, how to use a drill, etc. etc.
Yeah.
Anyway, Brenda came in one day and she said, I want you to help me build a box. I said, okay, what kind of box? She said, well, it's a coffin. I said, what? She said, yes, my husband has agreed. He knows about this. Good. He said, we want to make it into a TARDIS. Because he wants to be buried in a TARDIS. But in the interim, before he dies, we're going to put it in the garden so the kids can play in it. So we built a TARDIS.
Yeah.
And we had also dementia patients who used to come along and sit and watch or have a coffee and have a chat.
Yeah.
Just one guy used to stand there with a piece of wood, 6-inch nails, a little toffee man, try and knock him in the wood. But he was happy.
Yeah.
That's what it's about. So when I came here, I had the idea in my mind that I could carry on. However, and I can understand, health and safety wise in the area is paramount to protect pensioners.
Yeah.
And I know layers are fast and dangerous, and if you don't know what you're doing, you can cause yourself some serious injury. So I appreciate it. But they're giving these little spaces out now. And we just knock things together as people want them. If somebody wants something doing. But one of my favourite things, of course, is because I couldn't get the lathe, I went to do pottery.
Yay!
And they make these little characters.
Wow! Look at that.
Now this is a test. This normally come out red.
Yeah.
With black cuffs,
Yeah.
black tricorn. And they're great for standing flowers in.
Yeah.
And they're heavy, so they don't tip over.
Yeah.
But I've developed it from having no arms and just round buttons.
Yeah.
Having square arms, smaller buttons. And now this is the first one that has feet.
Yeah.
So he's going to have feet on it for the first one.
Brilliant. And how do you find it working with clay from having had lots of experience now of working with wood?
With wood, if you take a shaving off, you can't stick it back on.
Yeah.
With clay, you can do what you like. You can mash it up again and throw it back in the box.
Yeah.
Leave it for next week.
Yeah.
Take it out again, wedge it, use it again.
Yeah.
So I think this is a much friendlier, because if you do it with wood, you get it wrong. And there's not really so much sharp tools in clay either.
No.
So it's very therapeutic.
Is it?
Because sometimes I come and make these and I take them back to my room and I'll paint them on a night when I'm sitting watching the TV.
Yeah.
It keeps my mind occupied, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's good fun.
As you'll have heard in that clip, the pensioners showed me their work, which, of course, doesn't necessarily translate to audio. So make sure you visit the Creativity Found podcast channel on YouTube to see their creations. You won't be disappointed. Thanks so much for listening to Creativity Found. If your podcast app has the facility, please leave a rating and review to help other people find us. On Instagram and Facebook, follow @CreativityFoundPodcast, and on Pinterest, look for @CreativityFound. And finally, don't forget to check out creativityfound.co.uk, the website connecting adults who want to find a creative outlet with the artists and crafters who can help them tap into their creativity.